I'll give a brief introduction. I'm Derek. I run the peptide price.store. That's my price tool. I kind of got into the whole research peptide space it's been about a year now, just because um, I found it just with my journey and stuff. I don't know if you know my story. Basically, when I was growing up around like 16, I was like overweight my entire life. Literally like super overweight. Now I'm a little bit like now I'm more structured and everything. I used to be like 5'10" and like 250 pounds, like no muscle or anything like that. So it was just naturally, I had a lot of, food noise, a lot of hunger, stuff like that. So I lost about 70 pounds over the course of like 2 or 3 years without any GLPs or anything like that. Um, and then for me, it was really the food noise aspect of staying at that lower body weight. So I went down to about like 180, kind of that's where I maintained throughout college and everything. And I kind of just fought like it was really just binge restrict cycles of like, trying to stay at that lower body weight because I loved what I saw in the mirror, right? But for me, I just didn't do it sustainably to the point where, that food noise never went away for me. So I wanted to eat healthy. I tried like all the bodybuilding diets and tried to go like really strict with that stuff. But even with like a high fiber intake, everything like that, it was just, when that controls your mind like 24/7, you have enough, you have enough like grit and kind of self-control to like stay for a certain amount of time, but then when like stress and like life events just build up, you kind of fall into that cycle. So for me, that's why after fighting it for like 3 or 4 years, last year I kind of went the compounding pharmacy route and tried Tirzepatide for the first time, and that just completely killed my food noise. Like literally, just a small like microdose just
Right.
completely wiped it out. And for me, I was like, this is cool, but I can't afford anything. Like especially, going, into an entry level role. I was lucky I have a software engineering job, but and it pays well, but for the average person, they can never afford it. So that's what kind of led me into that world, and then it kind of expanded out from there. So if you want to give an introduction, and then I really want to talk about your story because people have heard about it, but I think just seeing different perspectives and everything can help a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, thankfully you caught it. My story is very similar, but I am
Okay.
53 years. I'm from the 1900s. So, but early on, same issues. Like I was, chubby as a kid, Polish and Italian. I didn't have a fighting chance. Okay, Carb Central. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
but even at such a young age, even just like the people around you in your environment, just kind of setting you up you're so cute and you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah. Yep.
internal dialogue gets kind of programmed, especially in the formative years, 0 to 8. Like it's cute until you're 5, but the programming's there. So
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of addiction in my family, my mom, alcoholism, all the things like just that whole side of the family was that. So kind of prone to have that, running in my DNA. And
Yeah.
so just a lot of like very turbulent childhood stuff. Obviously, I started resorting to food, and then early on in my life, started picking up some pretty gnarly habits. So I think it's important for people to understand I'm not just a fitness person who is into sports, who just have always looked.
Yeah.
There's kind of this conceived notion of people in this space that they don't understand and don't comprehend. This is a psychological game. Do you know what I'm saying? Like just like you said, like you can have all the willpower that you want, but if there's something that's gone on, and I typically have linked it over the 25 years I've been in this business in my own, background,
Yeah.
it's a psychological game. If we don't understand what created the behavior as well, like you're never going to get to the root of the problem. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, so that food noise and all of these things, like there's layers to that. So,
100%.
um, yeah, not to get too off field, but I do think it's important for people to understand that it's not just about willpower. It's not, there's not anything wrong with you. There's something traumatic that's happened along the line. There's something, especially for women, and this is like kind
Yeah.
of where my niche has gone into. Women my age, we came up in a different time. The diet culture was different. You had to be a size 0. There's a lot more, there's a lot less of that today. There's a lot
Yeah.
more acceptance, but it's almost like the pendulum has swung completely over here. It's okay to be 500 pounds. Absolutely. No, it's not, because your health, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
so there's a middle ground. Anyway, fast forward, lots of horrific habits, smoking, drinking, all the things. Dropped out of school actually at the age of
Okay.
16,
Wow.
and knew that the trajectory of my life was going to look very similar to my mother's. So at the age of 21, closing down the bars every night. I was like, I need to go in the military. Like, I need my ass kicked,
Yeah.
So I went into the Navy, and they teach you fitness, but they certainly don't teach you true health. So I was still, if I can run 5 miles, I can certainly keep my cigarette habit and my drinking habit, and that's what I did. It's like this like trade-off, like you're, able to have this negotiation conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
Um, with a lot of trauma in the military, ended up getting out 5 years later for a lot of PTSD and medical stuff,
Gotcha.
and in the hands of the pharmaceutical industry. So the Navy, had me on a ridiculous amount of things. So I was
Okay.
very medicated. I was numb to the world. I was still hanging on to my cigarette habit. I still had like lost some of the weight, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was just not mentally, I did not have the bandwidth to participate in the civilian world. I
Yeah.
felt like, oh my God, that was my Hail Mary. Like now I don't have a future. Um, Luckily, my mom took an herbalist course at the time, and this was like 2000, before you could find all these things on, green powders and all the things in every store.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I got off all the meds. I got my serotonin back online, 5-HTP, all these precursors, melatonin, all the things. Okay.
Yeah.
CBD was a big piece of that to kind of reestablish my body's own. When you're on these SSRIs,
Yeah.
they block receptors to be able to make these things and produce these things. So the internet was my friend. I just spent endless 2 or 3 years just like going down the rabbit holes on things I could find.
Yeah.
And like I said, so that was 2000.
Okay.
I fitness like gave me this endorphin, you know what I mean? It gave me like the bandwidth and this energy to like rebuild my confidence. I ended up getting a job at NASA, and then that was my whole career for, 8 years. And I was just dipping my toes into getting credentials, teaching boot camps before, teaching Zumba or yoga after, and all the things. So that was really it for me. And then
Yeah.
um, 2006, my dad had cancer. He had 3 months to live. I went further into a deep dive of alternative remedies to help. And again, there were not green powders available. Nobody was even speaking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And, for me, I had lived overseas. I was stationed over there at one time. And I started making this correlation like, there's no lads over there. Like, there's no one has cancer. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, what's the variance? What's going on? So that really triggered a lot of things in me to be like, okay, there's a variance not only in our environment, but obviously lifestyles, food, all the things.
Yeah.
So I got my dad on like a green powder. You know what I mean? 6 months went by, 9 months went by. The doctors are like, what are you doing? He's like, old school Italian. He's like, don't worry about it. My daughter's got me. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kept
Yeah.
meatballs, didn't change anything about his diet. That was, for me to extend his life another year and a half, and then he finally passed. That was my wake up call to really lean into this line and this profession. I had no idea how it was going to unfold.
Yeah.
I was just doing fitness, and I felt like, the best way I can honor him is to make sure that I'm giving people other tools in some way, shape, or form, whether fitness or whatever. And that's kind of how I've been navigating the world ever since. And so I walked away from that career in 2008,
Okay.
and decided to do this full time.
Awesome.
So since then, just getting like all the credentials, and I have a bachelor's of alternative medicine as I was finding things, but I was also on like raw food and fasting, and like,
Nice.
that took all of this whole other trajectory for me to clean my system out from that early onset of all the damage I had done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
here we
I think even that overlap is pretty similar. When I was, during that whole time where I was struggling kind of to keep, at a lower body weight in general and try to like keep those healthy habits, I was doing the same thing. I was researching like we grew up like in my generation, we grew up with, a phone in our hand because that's the first thing we go to rather than listening to, especially I grew up in like a super small town. Like my graduating class was like 50 kids. So it's like there wasn't like that our medical system wasn't the best or anything like that. So like even like our primary care doctor and everything, they just kind of like shrug everything off. So everything I led down the rabbit hole of was, find as much information out there as you can like online. And then like I think it's more common now, like a lot of, especially my generation, like podcasts now that they're readily
yeah,
available for to go look up like what's happening, like you said, like with the SSRIs and keeping like I went down that whole rabbit hole of like, it is at the end of the day, it's the habits and something that happened like in your childhood that kind of leads to all of these, issues down the line or, bad habits in general that just keep continuing over time. So I always tell people, especially like, as they're trying to solve anything, especially, the easiest example is just overall diet and like just trying to get back into, a healthy lifestyle. It's while you're utilizing these peptides or, GLPs or whatever, you have to rebuild those habits and reestablish them as they're going to be at the easiest part. Because if you don't, those are just going to fall back into place. And I know even for me, it's hard to unlink everything you've learned from like childhood, right? Like that's going to come back and you have to use there's a whole bunch of different tools that you have to go down. It's not just looking at, hey, like I lost this weight. It's like, what foods are you eating? Are you, healthy overall? Because there's, just years of bad diet and stuff can build up on you. One of the other things that I went through that it was kind of scary. I dealt with like a lot of acne like growing up. Like I was just very acne prone. I think that was part of the, just bad diet and overall like overconsumption in general. So like me too, like I was on a bunch of like acne, like they put me on antibiotics for years. They tried like everything. I didn't want to go the Accutane route for because I was like, that's the last resort. And, you hear about all the side effects and stuff like that. But the antibiotics actually ended up just being worse for me. So I went for like a yearly blood work and my liver enzymes were like 4 or 500. They were like completely through the roof. And they were like, I was freaked out. My doctor's like, okay, we're gonna schedule like a liver ultrasound. Like they didn't know what was going on because like my other markers were in range, but those were just through the roof. Because they had me, I think it was like 2 or 3 years on like antibiotics, like very low dose of like doxycycline, minocycline, everything like that. So that was another reason I was like they completely took me off of that. They kind of rebounded over time. It took about like luckily it was like the liver can regenerate, so it was about like 3 to 4 months before those numbers dipped back down. But in general, I was like, what could be causing this? Because obviously, like my body wasn't able to clear any of that, like you know, oxidative stress and overall just my liver was not functioning properly. And if I didn't go to, I always preach blood work and stuff for people too, because I felt tired and stuff like that, but I didn't know it was, necessarily that bad. And it wasn't just a one off because that took a period of like 3 to 4 months to actually come back into range. So I think I can totally relate to, nobody knows the answer. So you have to go out there and research it for yourself. And I really like, just the fact that people living in like other spots when they don't have access to all this like processed food or they're doing something different lifestyle wise that it really just they don't get a lot of these conditions that we're kind of we just like grow up to accept and then we just take medication and like just like dive into it. What was like the first thing that you kind of did to kind of start your journey from that aspect of like, yeah, you said you had to go through like a whole process of cleansing out and getting back after like the medications. What was the first thing that you looked into and tried?
Well, this was way back in 2000. So
Yeah.
when I like, and again, there was not any of this,
Hmm.
no one was having conversations. Like I said, my mom was just way ahead of the game. She
Yeah.
was a caregiver for Alzheimer's, in-home caregiver. And so she started implementing a lot of the practices, like getting aluminum out of people's diets that she was caring for, and then really blunting the progression of where these doctors had said, these people are just forget it. They're not going to
Yeah.
recognize. So she halted like an extraordinary amount of female um females with Alzheimer's. So
Wow.
that was like she was doing God's work. So
Yeah.
she's way beyond her time. So, all these things. And so that kind of what sparked everything for me. I still unfortunately hung on to that cigarette habit. And again, that's an emotional, trauma. I picked that up at the age of 13. And by then I was
Wow.
like, what, 25, 26. Um, Again, still validating it. If I can run 5 miles, I must be good.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until like I said, my dad got cancer and I really started going, okay, that's like, I'm literally the first thing I did when I heard was light up a cigarette because that's a stress response.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I did seek out like a professional hypnotherapist who was actually a psychiatrist at one point and understood he did not need to medicate people. We could really do the internal work by reprogramming the brain. So that was my first like pivot to be like, I'm done. That's
Yeah.
when the fasting came online, raw food. I was raw foodist for a couple of years. I got credentials and all that, and really started understanding that, like you said, to your point, start being healthy now, but you've really got to do some damage control. It would be like me taking a bottled water and pouring to a gallon of, sewage water. Like nothing's
Mhm.
going to like that's not going to negate things. So was like, I need to really get 100% on board with this. And so yoga, meditation, understanding, it's the whole body, it's your
Yes.
mental framework, it's the cycle. Who are you participating with? Who's got your energy, who's got your attention? Like it's a whole different like reset. Um, and so, you know, for me, like fighting this my whole time, but still had that like backdrop of like, okay, and then kind of subconsciously, purposely putting myself in the fitness industry so I wouldn't go back to that addict. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
addict frame. But again, this is the slippery slope, is what I started to understand is like all I did was take that same template of an addict's mind frame of needing something, and it looked healthy, but I was still very obsessed with food because I started understanding if I only eat this bodybuilding diet, all the things,
Yeah.
then I can make my body look a certain way. But then it becomes psychological for us women. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
in third, what worked at 30 doesn't work at 40. And so it's always been this like, okay, let me do this. Let me fast for 10 days. I had so much metabolic damage.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just trying to get to my point of where I am now so that you understand, like, there's
Yeah.
nothing I haven't done to my body. Figure competition. Like I did it on a raw food diet just to be like, to the industry, you know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
following a very old paradigm of you have to have animal protein and you're not going to put on any muscle. I went in there with a gallon of green smoothies every day into the gym and I was like, here we are.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
so to really kind of like keep pushing into these different spaces where like there's this old framework that doesn't need to be there
Mhm.
because everyone's body is so different. Um, and so, detoxing from all of that, lots of plant medicine, all the things. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
But
I
it,
I completely get it because over like I did, especially during that time where I knew that like my liver was just like, super stressed out. I did the same things. I went into the greens powder. I went into,
right,
the gut health morning drink of like, you know, everything you need to throw in there, like aloe vera juice, apple
right,
cider vinegar. Like I went through that entire process too of just learning that it is more of an overall lifestyle thing that you just have to get these habits like on track and you have to sustain it for a good period of time. You know what I mean? It's not just like you're not just like, "Oh, you're starting it today, you're good to go." Like years of like whatever buildup was going on or whatever like was wrong, like everybody's going to be a little bit different. And I think a lot of people just are like, "Hey, like, I'm having this happen. What should I do?" kind of thing. And it's like without like context and looking back at like what kind of
right,
went wrong the last it's not just something that builds up. I think like it, especially like you can like visually like lose all this weight or kind of do anything, but to actually like feel better, that's going to take time. That's going to take like you know it could be a year for some people, it could be multiple years, and then the psychological thing is always just sitting in the back of your head if you don't take care of that. So it's good to hear that like I think everybody tries different stuff out and you only find what works when you finally sustain something for a long period of time.
right, right. Well, and then to your point of having like the foundational pieces, for me to, I'll circle back and answer that
Yeah.
component of where peptides finally came in. I was doing all these things for a number of years and then age 48-ish. Now, keep in mind, I had not had children. So I think that
Okay.
this is a whole other niche that women need to understand. Me
Yeah.
not having children, I went through menopause. I mean, it was a little, uncomfortable, hot flashes, all the things. I went through it very early and I breezed through it. Like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 53.
Yeah.
So I see my sister who has 3 kids, obviously was, it's not good. So if there's a
Mhm.
variance of hormonal things. I never did well on birth control. So I've never interfered with how my body and the hormones have been running the show.
Yeah,
And I think doing extended fasting, and there's a time and place for these things.
for
The
sure.
the problem is that people get stuck in just that one lane. I did it too. I'm just going to be raw foodist the rest of my life. Well, 2 years into it, I had no B12 left and I blew up my adrenals. So
Yeah.
there's pieces and tools that need to like happen at different junctures of your life. I'm never going to have a client come to me from a McDonald's drive-through of heavily processed foods and be like, let's get you on a raw food diet tomorrow. Like you will feel like absolute trash.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and it's not sustainable. Like, so there's layers and like pre and post work that you have to do. So point being is that like all of these things that I had done to myself, and then like the age of 48, it was COVID-ish,
Mhm.
and I was running a yoga meditation center outside of DC, and I just went all in on my spiritual side. And obviously, there was no gyms, and I ballooned up
Mm,
immediately. And just to give you a snapshot, when I went into the military, I had never stepped on a scale. I 5'4.5". I was
mhm.
177.
Yeah.
A good look. So about, well, now I'm 120. So about 50 pounds on my frame.
Wow.
And, so that was pre-military. Boot camp, I probably lost 15 pounds.
Gotcha.
Okay. I kind of like stayed around 140, 135. But I was also smoking. So not good.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always hovered at this like 140, 140, body fat changed. But for me to balloon back up during COVID and then just felt like complete garbage and no access to gyms, I was like, oh my God. And it was just very fast. And then menopause started, like things started. I was like, okay, my body is my body is going down
Yeah.
this
It's scary.
stream.
It's scary
It's
for sure.
scary because I just took, this is my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm a billboard for my business. Like it felt very hypocritical for me to even speak about anything, regardless.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so you feel, especially as a female, like you're feeling pretty defeated. I'm like, this is not, I did not do all this work and have this at the forefront of my life all these years to,
Yeah.
to end up this way. Um, so it has been very difficult from probably the age of 50, coming out of COVID, the gym's coming back on, you know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
was still like, man, what used to take me, like I could, I've done figure comps, like I know what I'm doing, but
Exactly.
it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
willpower. It didn't matter.
Mhm.
It was like, I don't know if it was the metabolic damage, the hormones, all the things. So to my point, it was like, okay, I got back down to like one, but it was like, this is crazy hard.
Yeah.
3 years of like really pushing. So I was like, let me just see if let me, before I poo poo something, because there's so much stigma around GLPs.
Yeah.
And certainly being a fitness person, holistic health person, like, who am I to get on a GLP? Like, what am I thinking? And then I was like, let me listen, Laura, like, come on. So I went on the deep dive, microdosing and all the things,
Yeah.
especially women, all the things. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to pull the trigger. I need different tools. Something's happening.
Yeah.
The willpower doesn't work anymore. I know I don't drink. I haven't touched alcohol in 1,000 years. There's nothing more I can do.
Yeah.
I don't want to take another creatine, nothing like I have supplements. They're not like nothing's doing it. So I got on Trizepatide through a compounding pharmacy, June 19th, 2.5 milligrams. Um, Terrified. Literally, there's a video of me like taking my first shot. I'm shaking because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I gotta poke myself in the stomach. And at that juncture, I was 151 pounds on June 19th of
Okay.
this year. Not a good look. Um, and so I took it. I didn't like absolutely zero food noise, but
Okay.
to the point that I was repulsed by food. So fatigue, like I can't even get my ass downstairs to the gym. I can't like I couldn't
Yeah.
do anything. So on comes somehow, some way, I find peptides. I found people talking about, you know, retatrutide and all these things. I was like, what the hell? So on the deep dive I go. So 3 weeks into Trizepatide, I think it was like 5 pounds down already, and I was like amazed.
Yeah.
But I did not
Yeah.
like the sensations. I did not like the sensations because I knew what it was doing metabolically, the damage it was doing to my body. I'm like, I know there's muscle under here, and I feel it eating away at everything I've worked for.
Yeah.
So I shifted to Retta. I got on AOD 9604, and then I got on GHKCU. Those are my three um, my first babies, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
my first stack, and it was incredible. Like it was
Mhm.
like I things that would have taken me years or even like 6 months, like things just started working, you know.
Yeah.
I loved, I had my energy back online. I slowly titrated up, and I was like, I need to really document this, especially women, because I get in
Yeah.
these spaces on social media. People do not have a holistic background. Women are just saying, just take this. Like it's still setting them up for the framework of just keep doing this. Oh, you're not getting results. Titrate up. They don't
Yeah.
understand that if your foundational work is not there to mitigate what's your exit plan is my point. No
For
one
sure.
was talking about a 3-phase pre, during, and exit plan. No
Yeah.
one's talking about this. Like you can't be on 12 milligrams of Trizepatide, you know what I mean? Or
No.
anything. You shouldn't need to feel like that's your savior. Like you got to do some lifting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got to do. work on your own. So
Yeah.
then I started seeing these holes and these, predominantly females crying about the side effects. Oh, I felt like this and the headaches and the I'm like, because you're eating 300 calories. Like, what do you
Exactly.
do? Like, you got to set up lifestyle habits. You got to get your ass in the gym.
Mhm.
Like, stop having this framework in the society of like, oh, there's a pill or a potion. And even the supplemental industry can be like that.
Yeah.
People, like I said before, they just expect this one thing to undo all the damage. Like, that's going to save them. Like, no, you're responsible and you have sovereignty over your health. Like, and choose this path because it empowers you. Educate yourself enough to have, to know what you need to do. So that's what prompted me to be like, okay, things are happening for me. Let me start documenting this. I got on TikTok. I ended up, 11,000 followers. Then I got banned because,
Yeah.
you can't talk
Yeah.
about anything. So I went over to YouTube and then, just started talking. And the women started coming out of the woodwork. They're like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, like, because I'm not a fitness person who's going to come on here. I'm 20 years old and, no disrespect to
Yeah.
20 years, but
Yeah.
like I've lived through the things. Like, I understand the metabolic damage. I understand the hormone damage. And I understand, like, if you don't get your psychological game on point to understand what created the behavior in the midst of it and do the foundational work, have these phases set up where, okay, I've got everything. I've done my nutrition, like me. I've done the
Yeah.
nutrition. I've done the what's wrong. Okay. Now let's get you on a microdose. Now let's look at what your first like issues are. Okay, you want energy, you want this. Just pick two peptides. Don't come out of the gate with you've got to stack.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, like as
Yeah.
you know, people just want to stack it all. I'm like, I know they sound cute and they sound fun, and you can just take off all the things that you need that you think you need, but it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I always tell people, especially for when they're starting out, like you have to go low and slow with everything, and you really shouldn't overlap by like 2 to 4 weeks. Like let stuff give
Right.
you need to give it time to work, and also you don't know what side effects are going to come with that, so you want to know you know,
What's
what's
creating what?
causing it overall. I think I was lucky enough to before before the GLPs were so readily available, like during that college period, like I was able to successfully keep the weight off. It was just not a healthy, like it was just a binge kind of like cycle, but that led me to research all I was into the whole food diet, bodybuilding diets and like all of that stuff. And then once I got into it, I think I was lucky enough to get the right information online of like, people are like, this shouldn't completely kill your appetite. It should, like you were saying, you have to have the foundational, you have to have enough food in your system to, you're still in a deficit, but you have enough energy that you're going to the gym and utilizing, you have enough protein or, whatever your macronutrient breakup is that you can get in there, start lifting overall. People come at it. I think I was lucky too because I was still at that maintenance and I wasn't looking to lose 40, 50 pounds when I got on a GLP. I was
Yeah.
looking just to take away that slight food noise of that would lead me over the edge and just like lead to a binge and stuff like that. So I think because there's a point, and even with GLPs, like the people that don't get that food noise suppression, I think if you have a history of, going overboard and like that's when like you'll get that little bit of suppression, but when that food noise pops back in, you kind of still fold to that pressure. And that's where it can be an issue because the slowed gastric emptying and like, you know what I mean? Like you really have to be eating enough. So it doesn't really work unless like if you're especially on your super microdose, like if you're not eating, close, like at least in a deficit, if you try to go to that 300 calories, it's going to do more damage in the long run because now you're one losing muscle. And if you're on something like TERS, which was a good point, it's like you don't have any metabolic support with that. It's all just if you're eating 300 calories over time, your baseline is just going to keep dropping off, not to mention different hormones, different, what's been going on behind the scenes the last couple of years. I've seen Retta for, a lot of people, I think is the big game changer because of like the glucagon that gets added in. And then that kind of sets you up for at least a good foundation. Like I've found, especially, people can eat a little bit more on Retta with like, they're not getting that nausea or, they're still getting like a good amount of food noise suppression, but they can still eat, still go to the gym and set up like that active lifestyle. So that's why I kind of push people in that direction. But I think everybody needs to go in with the mindset that you probably still will have a little bit of food noise. You're still going to be hungry throughout the day, but it's how you structure your overall lifestyle and structure those meals to, you know, be eating throughout the day and not like completely limiting yourself to that regard because it's the same thing regardless without a GLP, like you can willpower and push your way through. You can lose all the weight like I did, and you can do it the wrong way. But what's your exit strategy at the end? Because you really have to. That's why I'm not a fan too. There was like a big phase in like the fitness industry, at least for it was like the bodybuilding side of like aggressive cuts and like aggressive diets for a while, where people like even for women it was worse, but for guys it was like 1,200 or 1,400 calories for like 6 weeks trying to undo everything you put on within the last year. And I think it just harms more people to like see that stuff, and they're like, oh, like everybody's looking for the quick fix. But even with the peptides, like you just have to, if it takes you longer, that's a good thing because you have more time to establish those habits. Like everybody wants those results super quick, but you know, and you hear all these things like weight falling off within the first week and everything like that, but definitely take like a slow approach to everything. Especially like a lot of people don't need more than, a couple peptides, two peptides. They can get to whatever their goals are. They don't need an entire stack. Like I think a lot of people do go down that route, but definitely space things out like you were saying. And then I don't know your experience. You said the first ones you did were Retta, GHKCU, and AOD, right?
Right.
So how long
Um,
was that? Like, what was that initial phase?
so that started, so I did a cycle. I was only on AOD, I think, for a month. I didn't even
Okay.
like do a whatever. And because things were almost like, okay, this is good. I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
GHKCU, I would say like the first, around week 3, I started noticing my nails. I was like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like week 4, week 6, my skin, like I don't put like 5 layers of makeup on. I'm not that girl. I'm not doing it. I'm in the gym. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like my makeup's not done in 5 minutes. I'm not doing it. So I started noticing like my skin and stuff. I was like, oh my God, I don't, and then I started the topical GHKCU and the
Yep.
snap. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start talking about this. And then I did a run of Epitylon, and then I got
Yeah.
on Motsi, Selank, Samax, not all at the same time. These were like,
Yeah.
I introduced one, I gave it some time. You know what I mean? Epitylon, I love that thing.
I love that one as well. That.
Like that's a reset. That's like, okay, we're doing a little bit of an upgrade on the operating system. Um, so I did that. And then what else did I have? I think that's it. KPV has been my most recent one. And
Yeah.
Melanitan does its job. I'm in Ohio. I'm not going to see the sun for like 8 more months. So I was like, let me get on this. I was pretty impressed with that. So as I was trying different things, I'd like throw up a random video on YouTube,
Yeah.
and then these women just started coming out of the woodwork. And I was like, okay, let me create this school community and I don't want to have to repeat myself 8,000 times.
Yeah.
So, um, because I'm just so lit up about it, because
For sure.
being in this industry, like you said, you've got people in the bodybuilding industry, and that's one of the reasons I was like, I'm doing it on greens and
Yeah.
zero protein. And the amount of eating disorders that go on in that industry, and they just because you will literally you're taking down to, like, these people are eating ice chips for the last 3 days before they
Yeah.
get on that. I don't care how great you think these people look. I did the same thing. I was like idolizing these people my whole life, And then when you see literally behind the scenes that they're throwing up in a corner when they get off the stage because their trainer hands them a piece of chocolate cake that they can finally have,
Yeah.
their body is shocked by it. I mean, there's pizza, hamburgers, everything waits when you get off stage. And these people go from being a friggin' breatharian, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? For the 3 weeks leading up to that show to get very vascular and look a certain way
Yeah.
on stage. And then here we go, wash, rinse, and repeat. They gain literally 20 to 30 pounds within 72 hours. You want to talk about the psychological effect that has on your mind. And then they just keep doing this. Okay, I can hurry up and, like, the pendulum is either over here or it's over here. They're like, binge and then get back on board and go get another show in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just
People don't
so.
understand that the rebound effect of like how strong that, like, after eating nothing for that many weeks straight, of how strong that food noise is, and it doesn't, your body doesn't want to shut that off afterwards. It's
And it doesn't have to. And here's
yeah,
the thing, like, you don't have to do that.
yeah,
When you're protein, I'm like, stop complicating things. Half of your plate, this is what I tell people, half your plate's veggies, the other, size of your palm is protein, and then you have some like carbs. Stop fear mongering food.
yeah,
These people that come off tours and stuff and they want to shift over to Reddit, I'm like, your hunger cues are going to come back on. And there's no need to be afraid of that,
yeah,
because you think your hunger cues are going to lead you to eating a gallon of ice cream and you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
that's your reference point. I'm hungry. I can't trust myself. That's you know what I mean?
yeah. Yep.
Hunger is not bad when you do it right. So, speaking of green smoothies, I tell people like if your appetite is not there and you want to stay on tours, like make sure you're at least getting nutritionally sound things happening. If you can't eat all that food, drink a friggin' green smoothie. Like if I was able to put on all that muscle just using the amino acids from rotating my greens and blending them,
Yeah.
because then the amino acids actually pop open. There's a hard shell over each like little amino acids. I tell people
Hmm.
it's kind of like an M&M. But
Yeah.
when you massacate that and pulverize it in a blender, it shatters that shell. So the minute you drink that versus chewing it, all that protein goes immediately to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Is cooked protein, you lose a third of it, then your body has to digest it, you lose another third of it. So you thought you were getting 10 grams of protein with that chicken, it's down to 6 or 7, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, spinach only has 5 grams of protein, but it's all going to do what it needs to do. Now
Yeah.
you also get your digestive enzymes because if you're on antibiotics ever in your life or any kind
Hmm.
of any pharmaceuticals, your gut bacteria is effed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The food is effed. Like diet cokes or any of these sodas, your gut for the most part
Yeah.
people's gut microbiome is not well. You know what I mean? And
No,
that
for sure.
those cravings and that appetite is your body's way of saying, I'm starving and I'm deficient in a nutrient enzyme or, you know what I mean, some sort of vitamin. And when you recalibrate that, and that's the fastest way to do it is
Yeah.
with green smoothies. You know what I'm saying? Like it mitigates it's the answer to three different things. I don't have an appetite. I need to get all my full spectrum of, nutrients and reestablish things in my body and my gut, and I'm not going to end up having metabolic damage. You know what I mean? You throw some like dates are very high
Yeah.
caloric and you throw those in there. You know what I'm saying? So it pushes your calories up as well. So like I ended up creating like this little free guide because I was
Yeah.
getting so annoyed. People were not speaking about these phases. They were not saying like, so I was like, listen, here's a 3 phase. You got to do this, you do this, and then be done with it. You know what I mean? Like have an
Hmm.
exit plan. What's okay? You're going to get to your goal weight. What are you going to do? If you're at 12 milligrams of any of this stuff,
Yeah.
and then now you have metabolic damage and you have nowhere to go.
For sure. I
Versus,
think
versus
I think you brought up
type
a good. Oh,
reverse dieting. No one's talking about that. You
true.
know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're going to blow up if you immediately go from eating 300 calories, you shift to Retta, your appetite comes back on. You're going to have weight gain, but like if you do it smartly, it's reverse dieting, which is essentially like getting your baseline of
Yeah.
calories and then just adding 200 calories of clean food every week, and then it starts to rebuild your metabolism. But again, these are all the things that I saw that were missing, that people get on here and be like, just titrate up. And oh, I feel like trash. Well, just find a peptide. Oh, your energy's down. Like, stop sending people up to just like add a peptide
No.
to mitigate side effects that you can mitigate from a habit, you
Yeah.
know?
You need those building blocks of whether it's nutrition or it's, anything like when you're throwing a GLP on a problem that's already there. Like you're obviously, there's either some oxidative stress occurring from your diet or you're not, partitioning your nutrients properly and there's no building blocks there. So when you're on 300 calories and it's not even the right food sources, right? It's like it's nothing that's going to benefit you. Like I think you mentioned it earlier with like even getting like serotonin back online. Like you need to. I think you mentioned like 5-HTP. Like you need to you need all that stuff, whether it's diet, peptides, anything like that. You're gonna find like anything that's like rebuilding or healing you. It's putting those building blocks back in place, and then over time, it'll kind of just like build back up, get your body back online functioning, and then that's when you start to feel good again. But you can't just think one thing's gonna solve the problem, especially even with certain peptides like a glutathione or anything like that. You're just putting, you're giving your body the resources to actually use that stuff, like to
Right.
make you feel better. But if you don't, if you keep depleting that over time and everything's not structured with a diet or anything, you're gonna keep having to supplement with it constantly. So no, I really like the points you brought up, especially I think even with the GLPs, people don't know the diet aspect of getting your, spinach, dates, like all those are really like nutrient dense foods. A lot of that you can't get directly from supplements unless, like with a green smoothie, you're able to throw a lot in there, you're able to throw it in to do whatever. But like in general, you add that plus like a good whole food diet. Like another good thing that I kind of went through was and like the bodybuilding side doesn't do this properly, but I actually got a coach for a little while. Just more of a lifestyle coach just to get me back, like just to find like a good maintenance diet. And the thing that they preached was, every meal had like it had either vegetables or fruit, like different fruit throughout the day, different, antioxidants to get in there, plus like the gut health stuff. Like you really have to, if you want this problem to get solved long term, and I know a lot of people are just like, oh, it would be nice to, it'd be nice to like lose weight without really trying. But if you're really trying to solve the issue, you should do a whole deep dive into nutrition and like you were saying, like, the gut detox, and when you're having all these cravings and stuff, you're not getting some nutrients somewhere that you're craving. So I think that's important. With the people you work with, like what's the basic thing that you tell them to kind of like set up, like originally if they come to you and it's like obviously issues are going to be different across the board, right? Everybody's going to have like a different stance, but like what do you tell them in the first couple weeks, like what to expect kind of thing, like when they're getting, trying to get into that phase of like rebuilding?
Yeah. Well, like, so I had my Zoom call with my ladies last night. And again, these people that are the audience that, is gravitating to me are women that have been through it all, done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've been out of the gym because they just gave up. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of women that just like, this is just aging. They throw their hands up. I've had kids. This is just my body. No, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, yeah, maybe metabolic damage, your hormones and stuff, but there are tools that will help you. The last time you tried this 10 years ago, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
these are tools that will help you this time. Like, they know, they understand, they for the most part understand they've got to get in the gym. They have to get back in and they're just, exhausted from trying it before and nothing working, or
For
like
sure.
nothing working at this stage of their life. And I'm speaking, basically these women are over 40
Yeah.
plus. Okay. Um, and so I think that's why they, kind of resonate so much with me, because it's like, listen, I put my body through the ringer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, try it again. This is not have to be aging. Like, this is my freaking skin. Like,
No, you
I've
look amazing
never
by the way.
looked like this
Yeah.
in all the years that I have tried to do things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll probably even say if I put a picture up when I was 30, I still didn't look like I'm 118 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
are you serious right now? Like, I thought I was like, okay, 130 is good. And it's not even about the scale. I tell them, that the biggest thing is your mental bandwidth that you're now going to have energy to be present in the events that you're in your life. I'm still shocked at the psychological benefit that's going on for me. Yeah, it's great. I can go in my closet and wear whatever, and that still hasn't caught up yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
no, I can't wear that because that. No, you can't wear it because it's 4 sizes too big. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm making them understand like how much energy is wrapped up in the psychological piece of this, because you don't feel good every day, you don't feel good, and you just keep trying to hide it, and then you end up in the kitchen because you want to like soothe. And
Hmm.
so when all of that stuff is gone, it's like I have had so much bandwidth to create a school community, to go do this, you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
like do all these things, to like be present and feel good and not worry about, do I look fat or people looking at me? I'm teaching this class, I'm supposed to look a certain way. All of this like internal dialogue goes away.
Yeah.
All of that negative self-critic, it goes away. And you also have to grieve the fact that you have found comfort in food. And that's going to be a grieving process, because I don't give a shit about ice cream. I could care less when I walk through a bakery aisle now.
Yeah.
And these things used to really, like you say, trigger me. Oh, I got to turn on the willpower. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. And when that is so, I think that's the bigger miracle. And for me to have such an addict sort of being prone to addiction, and now to be on the other side of it for 53 years, have this like noise that's beyond just food, but why I was reaching for food,
Hmm.
that mental freedom and the psychological freedom in and of itself is beyond what a number, 3-digit number on the scale is going to give you. Like, yes,
Yeah.
there's just layers of these reward systems that happen.
Hmm.
If you just be patient and do it right, 12 weeks, you could be in a completely different body. And then that's the miraculous thing, that if you do this and you do it right and you get in the gym what I mean? I'm doing probably half of what I used to do in the gym,
Yeah.
and I'm getting rewarded for it. I'm not just sitting around waiting for the scale to move, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that's the thing. Like, I just drive it home. If you do a little bit of work, this is going to work this time. And it's going to be beyond what you have expected before because it's sustainable. You're going to have an exit strategy. I'm still only on, I think, 4 milligrams. I just now got to like
Yeah.
5 milligrams a week on Retta. And I've
Yeah.
been on it for 9 weeks. I don't need to titrate up to 1,000. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
the scale's moving, my body recomp. I'm on tesamorelin now. And that's what I tell them as well. Don't like worry about the weight first, get into the gym, do as much as you can to retain your muscle because that muscle is going to help you metabolically.
For sure.
And when you're ready and you're near your goal weight, add something like Summerellin, Tesamorelin. Let's get some muscle back on your frame because I don't know where my backside went to. I've been carrying around for 53 years, but it's gone. But now I need to like my upper body's I'm pretty
Yeah.
shredded and stuff, but I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so small on the so don't implement Tessa unless you're ready to see the scale go up a little bit because you're going to
Yeah.
stash. That's going to happen. And the last thing you need is to feel like you're regaining the weight and you're not.
Yeah.
So psychologically, I think people need to understand um, that these are phases and like you're going to want to put muscle on. And then if you take Ipamorel and Tessa, this is what's going to happen. So if you're mentally not ready to see the scale like hover at like 8 pounds more for a few weeks,
Hmm.
don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Um,
That mental aspect that you talked about is huge, especially like you were saying, just, now that you don't have to use like, you don't feel uncomfortable in any situation where you can go into a bakery aisle or go, see certain foods and you just kind of look at it and you really don't have that craving behind it anymore. You know what I mean? I used to be scared, like, especially during college and stuff. Like, I wouldn't put, like, I'd come home for like the holidays or stuff, and my parents would have like junk food everywhere, or it'd be like, I'd be worried about like Thanksgiving because like all the food and stuff is out and everything like that, and that would consume 90% of my headspace like leading into it, and even before that, especially. I still had that when I was like, because you know how you want to end up like looking, and you know that you're in like a bad spot even when you are like super overweight and stuff like, and that still consumes your mind. But now that I went through the whole thing, and especially after like losing all that weight and stuff, the confidence that you get just to go out and do things, and like I would have never recorded like a TikTok or anything like that beforehand. Like I didn't have that confidence whatsoever. Especially, the bandwidth to start like a school community or anything like that. Like, honestly, when I was getting into it, I did the same thing. I just kind of documented the process originally, and then, that kind of turned into my like website thing of like documenting that, building that at the same time. And it's it's just night and day difference of like, when you're in situations you don't even care what people think anymore because you have that like inner self-confidence just to, how far you've come with that regard. But in general, like, you're not scared like to be in certain situations or like be like, put yourself out there at that point. And I don't think, I think once people get there, like, they'll do anything not to give that up because it really does change your life from that aspect. And I've seen it happen so much with people. Even, they lose the first. I think we're always striving to get to, a better result regardless, and like some people can like push it too far, but like once you get to a certain point for a long sustained period of time, you realize that half these things you were overthinking before, like, it didn't have to be that way. And I think that's the most freeing thing for a lot of people. Especially, I can see it more, on the women's side of, that's probably 10 times more amplified, but it does happen for guys too. So it's it's definitely a process, and it does, I think, the especially with this stuff, the physical side will catch up first, and then mentally you just kind of ease into it, and you're like, why was I so frustrated or worrying this entire time? You know what I mean? It really is. I never thought I could look at, junk food or, pizza or anything like that and like not actually crave anything, but it's insane. It's really like, I always think of like GLPs are like a tool that it's almost like a lot of people to be like, diet exercise like 80/20, right? I think GLPs just pushes you over, like, it's just doing, it's allowing you to do that diet portion, and you, like you said, it could take 12 weeks and you can be a completely different person. You just have to be willing to commit to it.
right.
Um
And it's such
yeah.
a short span of time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
considering how long, some people would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, the freedom that it rewards you on the other side of it. Like you said, I can sit with my family and not be like having this internal diet and not, you're like, you're just not present. And especially for someone like me at 53 years old,
Mhm.
so much of my life, 95 probably percent of it has been in my head.
Yeah.
How many experiences have I missed out of because I felt I was very shy my whole life, childhood. I mean, it wasn't until I started, well, getting pushed to teach fitness. I,
Yeah.
got out of the military and whatever, and I joined a women's boot camp, 5:30 in the morning. And, the owner of that, she's like, you already know what you're doing. Like, I had amazing results, all the things. They taught you nutrition, they checked your food journal. It was like not just show up for class and that's it.
Yeah.
And so she really pushed me. She's like, "You need to be teaching." I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
I never used to raise my hand in school. Like I just had like the first 2/3 of my life. And this is I was almost 30 years old at this juncture. And
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." She's like, "How long are you going to hide? Like just do this. Nobody knows what you know and what you don't know. You're going to get your certification." Like she really held my
Mhm.
feet to the fire. And so I did. And so I started teaching boot camps and I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna channel this and just pretend I'm angry at them and like 20 jumping jacks, let's go." And inside I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
But then seeing women get results and like that, like feedback loop. So like that was the first juncture of like the more I share like how I've changed because I've implemented something, and then it's just kind of like compounded. So to your point of like, I would the fear of social media, even on my social media, my
Yeah.
family doesn't even know what goes on in my life 90% of the time.
Same. Yeah.
I've hidden, oh, they're not, even in the fitness industry. Yeah, I can have 100 people in my class, but when that music goes off, I'm like, back to shy Laura, leave me alone. That's
Mhm.
that's Zumba Laura. She's off duty. You know what I mean? Yeah. Was she just shaking and doing different? Yes, she was, but that's not her. She's gone.
Yeah.
So you still revert back to this like old insecure person, regardless of all these crazy things. So my point is like really showing up in life,
For
like
sure.
100%. Like there's no, that's beyond like seeing, like I said, what goes on in the scale. And so to like you, if someone would have been like, you're going to be online to do, I had one video that was like 115,000 views. I was
Yeah.
like, are you serious right now? I had no makeup on. I got in my car and was like, hey, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
just like, what the heck? But the more raw you are and the more that you can just be like, this is hard, but now it's not, and
Yeah.
share these pieces. Like, and that's what these women were saying. They're like, we resonate with you because you're just getting on and you're just, look at this. This is amazing. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Like, you want it? Here's the tools. That's why I
Exactly.
created the school. Like, read it all. I'm not going to get on here and answer something that's already in that curriculum. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's just me being tough love. You really want this? Like, I want you to feel the sovereignty and have the education and make that informed decision for yourself. Here's all the knowledge. You know what I mean? I'm not a handhold to a
Yeah.
point.
No, and you can't. If somebody, somebody has to have at least the motivation to go out there and find something if it's readily available. I like, like you said, like provide all the education that's there, like that's needed, and once they're in that community kind of thing, like I it still just happens as you scale, you're gonna get people that, go in there and find everything they need because they search stuff up, they're constantly active about it, and they're asking, good questions about things, and then you have people that just want the answer straight away. That's why like same thing with me, I have like always like putting stuff out so there's like somewhere to reference people, right? It's like, okay, like this is here, like I know you might not be able to find it in the search, but here, go read this article and then come back and ask if you have the exact same like question, or there's something that wasn't covered in there. But overall, especially, how we got into it, we were just researching on the internet ourselves, and now there's much better resources out there, and it's in a much better like condensed spot. I think the school's like a great spot for it overall, but you can provide as much value as you want in there, or provide all that information. If somebody doesn't have that motivation to go, really like digest it for themselves, first of all, they're not going to know how to pivot or do anything like that when they need to. But you should really have a full understanding, because I think there's that group where you're going to research for about like 3 months before you do anything, and then there's that other group that's going to dive right in and ask questions later. So I think it's just better overall, give people the resources, and the ones that are really about it and really want to make that change, they're going to figure it out. I'm sure there's people in your school, there's probably people in my school that go in there, they get everything they need and they just implement it. They don't ask questions until later down the line where they hit something they they hit a roadblock or, or a lot of the times it'll be like, "Hey, I just, like, learned so much and, like, this is my progress over, like, the last 3 months." That's what keeps me, like, making content and doing all this stuff. Just seeing the life change in general. I know it's probably I never thought about it, but, like, for me, that, like, internal dialogue was, like it was probably, like, a 3 or 4-year period that I had that after, like, I lost the weight, and I know before that, I, like, wanted to change and stuff like that, but, like, you brought up, like, some people go through this for a good 2/3 of their life or even more than that, and then that change, I can imagine, trying to overwrite that is like, I don't know, for you personally, do you ever, like, find yourself, like, falling back? Like, does that still, like, pop into your head in those habits, or is that completely gone for you?
No, like I said, I've even tried to like, okay, let me, people will be like, here, just, I'm like, I'll have a bite of cake and it literally tastes like plastic garbage to me.
Yeah.
And and I still have to, and like I said, the biggest things are like, okay, like it's almost like you have to build this trust that that's not who you have to grieve this whole identity, really. Do you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? Like I said, like that food used to make me feel this way, that dopamine hit, or like, oh, that was a like chocolate cake. Okay, share that with my dad. We had the same birthday. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like
Yeah.
when you understanding like the emotional anchors that you have to these foods, and then when you don't have, it's like getting out of a bad relationship. Like you finally come to your senses literally, and
Mhm.
it has no effect on you. It really takes a while for you to start building that. Your new reference point is to trust that that's not the identity anymore. That's not the behavior. Just like when I
Yeah.
quit smoking, I don't need that. I don't need to do this anymore. That's not my reaction. And so it's just really crazy. I think when
Yeah.
more studies come out, especially on the addictive piece
Yeah.
of this mental framework of what's happening for those of us that have been inflicted with this, like, you know,
Yeah.
mental stuff about food, um, it's really going to blow up. And I think I would bet money that peptides it will take over anything on the supplemental industry. And when people give me this, like, well, they're not FDA approved, I go, do you think anything on the freaking
Yeah.
shelves of the supplement industry are none, literally the label says not FDA approved, but you've had no problem popping vitamin C pills. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so give it time, but, or my fear is that, you know, big pharma will get involved and see that people can actually be healthy on
Mhm.
peptides, and then they will become unaccessible. And that's my fear, because I've
Yeah.
seen over the years take things away from people, especially in the States. And that's,
For
you know,
sure. For sure. And yeah, no, it is
fear.
that if they well, because overall they're gonna make money prescribing more things to fix problems than they are from, peptides can do so much, even from like the GLP side, just the addictions that like sometimes go away when some people start like a GLP of I think I saw it. I don't know what it's called, but they're working on another like it's kind of like a GLP, but it is just for the neurological side of it, like people that deal with like alcohol and like addictions and stuff, because they've seen that in trials. And it doesn't blunt the it so it's more like the food noise side of it too. It helps with that, but it doesn't like slow gastric emptying. It doesn't have like the GLP. So there's a lot. I think it's definitely, especially what it's doing for people overall. Yeah, I could see it, them trying to take it away from people, but I think if it just grows like organically, it's the huge shift. I think GLPs really pushed people into the space, and then people are realizing that, they can kind of target specific issues, and if you do it the right way, it can completely put you on a different path. Like you were saying with, you know, not having that food noise or anything anymore, or like even you're just adverse to it. Like even when I like just because like if I'm like out with friends or something and I'm like forced to like have something, like I don't feel good the next day, and I don't want, in the past it would be like, oh, I'm like craving that again. That doesn't come back
Yeah, right.
into the
Yeah.
frame for
Yeah,
so
that's a
yeah.
good point. That's a good point. Because before you have one slice of pizza, you're eating the whole pizza. Like,
Hmm.
don't you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
When then all of a sudden that's gone, you're like, not only do I not want it, not only do I not feel good,
Hmm.
when your calories, when you understand and you finally come to the aha moment about 3 months into it, that like, if you don't have a foundation of food, like that's what I try to drive home with people. Like, you're only going to have this much space for food.
Yeah.
If you make it nutrient dense and clean, you're golden. Why don't even eat like the protein bars? I don't care that the label says there's protein in it. Like
Yeah.
get it from a clean source. It's not assimilated in your body the same way. Like I see like okay, I'd rather have you grab that if you're out and you're starving for 8 hours and there's nothing else. But
Yeah.
you can easily go to the deli and grab turkey lunch meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hard boiled eggs. It's the same amount of time as you going to somewhere else. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's a decision. It's just changing how you react to that
No,
decision.
for
Um,
sure. You almost have to take on, like you were saying, like a second identity if that's not you anymore. You know what I mean? And I think you
right.
have to push. That's kind of how I willed my way through like the whole weight loss as like, going through it kind of thing, like without like a GLP or anything. But even and you have to, I was in a bad cycle, like going back and forth, but I still, maintain that lower weight. It does take some push to adopt that new mentality, especially at first. But I think you just have a much better shot with a GLP of doing it. And if you do it properly like that, even that 12-week period could be, you know, life changing for you. You just really have to adopt, hey, like this food, like this is the spot I was at when I was like eating it, this is how I felt. Like you have to remember that and constantly
Right.
remind yourself of that, and that's going to be the biggest life changer for people. It's not going to be, oh, just because I'm on a GLP, you can take a GLP and eat like crap and you're going to feel like crap again. So
And that's what I was seeing. It was
yeah.
like, that's why, to my point, it was like, these people are just you know, grabbing the syringe, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
also, these are people that have done it because they didn't really try dieting. They didn't really do it correctly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For the most part. I'm like, you can mitigate all of these side effects. I don't understand what you're crying about. You got headaches? Well, because you ate a protein bar today. And
Yeah.
that's all you and you
Yeah.
haven't drank any water. Oh, I can't sleep. Well, no shit.
Yeah.
Like go move your body. You know what I mean? Like don't just lay around on the couch. Like that's what TERS made me feel like. Like I didn't even have the energy to get off the couch, let alone like any heavy lifting. I'm like, I feel like I can feel my muscle just like getting eaten away.
I
You
felt
know,
similar. Like TERS, like I was like a 1 milligram a week, like a very small microdose. But even like there was mornings I'd like wake up and like, do whatever, eat breakfast, and then I couldn't like get like I it was hard to like get up and do stuff, which was, the issue and ended up why like the reason I was like switching over. But yeah, you have to have all those in place, or else you're not gonna sleep well. Like I always tell people, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I have headaches and do all this stuff." It's like, did you drink some like electrolytes? Have you drank enough water today? And
when's
in
the last time
general, it's like whenever I've had sleep issues, it's been like, did I not move enough today, or did I not, exercise? You have to be tired to be able to go to bed and get some like deep sleep. You know what I mean? You can't just like sit around all day and with no, nutrients going in your system and expect to feel amazing kind of thing. So there's a lot to it, and I really like what you're doing from the whole, educational side of stuff, because it's not talked about enough. And especially I feel like there is a problem with people, like just especially with with how quickly the, research scene and all the other stuff is like blowing up. Like you get those like viral videos of like people being like, oh, like, 12-week transformation with like no context or whatever, and they're just like linking like Retta and stuff like that, and
or here's
it
your beauty
it's the same
hack,
thing.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, that's great, but like, and it's still like we said, it's the same framework of the pharmaceutical industry. Don't worry about you don't have to do anything. Here you go.
Yeah.
Just keep titrating up. So I think these pieces, when people have like for me anyway, and obviously sounds like for you, when you understand that there's way more to this and to map it out essentially is what I did for these.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to stall. This is what's going to happen. So what? It's not a real stall. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, understand, get on the scale every day. Stop fearing it. Use it as scale feedback. You just drank 60 ounces of water. Immediately go get on the scale and understand that the scale's going to move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not on your body. And so when you have to start like dismantling these old fears, like the chocolate cake and all the things that
Yeah.
just natural hunger cues. Just because you're hungry doesn't mean you're going to order an extra large pizza. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
it, and if you do, guess what? You're not eating it.
Yeah.
Like, so, but until like, when they start understanding, like, but there's not, like there's not been a lot of like, this is all the things that could possibly happen. That's what's in my school. It's like, these are
Yeah.
all the different scenarios. Just be prepared. The more that you know that this is the map to it for the most part, you're like you're gonna just be a rock star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like just save yourself the headaches. Like again, these people get on the phone with the telehealth and they whatever, and and they're just going to give you a generic titration schedule, and that's about all you're going to get.
I hate
And
that so much.
that's a
I
shame. You're dropping $400 or $500 a month. Like, absolutely no.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you're at your ideal BMI? That provider is going to drop you because you're not in this threshold of clinically being obese anymore. Now you're paying out of pocket.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's where the side effects come too, with just that natural titration. Like some people don't have to go past like 2 milligrams of Retta or something like that. It's if you're feeling good and the scale is still moving, there's no reason to titrate, and you should be optimizing every other variable before you even move with it. Like you were saying, nobody should be on 12 milligrams of anything at any point, because even as you go up, side effects increase, but then what is your exit strategy after you're done? Or that 12 milligrams, like, you're pounding those
you have nowhere
those
to go.
receptors.
You have
Yeah.
nowhere to go. That's
Yeah.
what, all these ladies, I'm like, this lady's still on like 2.5 of TERS. I go, stay there,
Yeah.
stay there. She's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to switch to Retta. I go, okay, but let's be smart. Like, you've been on this for 5 months, TERS at 2.5. That's great. But now you're used to not being hungry at all. Okay. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So you could have a couple options. And I tell people, like, you can just either jump off of it and go to Retta, or you can titrate down and start doing a little bit of a reverse diet,
Yeah.
start restructuring, getting your metabolism to understand that more food's coming in and it's clean. And then when you move to Retta, you're going to 4 to 6 week, until it saturates your body, but you're still going to have the old TERS in your system. Just because you stop taking TERS, it doesn't just, when you wake up the next day, it's all out of your system. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
they also need to understand that. They also need to understand the half-life in your body, which is why I'm a fan of, you go to Reddit or anything, you pin it
Yeah.
twice a week. You know what I mean? Because it has these peaks and the drop
Yeah.
off. So,
Yeah,
um,
people don't understand the 4 week. It's gonna build over 4 weeks, and it's gonna take 4 full weeks to kind of go down. And during that time, there's those peaks and valleys of you know when you're going through. So that's why I tell people to go to like the GLP-1 plotter, or I added the exact same thing on like the site. You should really understand like the titration of it, and like how much is actually in your system at one time, because
yeah.
overall, I think that, like, nobody talks about that coming off period too, of that titration down, because it's if you just keep doing everything like nice and progressive, you're going to run into way less issues than if you just you don't just drop something cold turkey, and you don't just increase something for no reason, kind of thing. Especially when it comes to like peptides, like, give your body the time to adapt to like the new stuff, especially with the reverse diet phases and everything like that. And then you're overall just going to put yourself in a much better spot to succeed. You don't want to go through those swings with anything, really. um
And
so
that's what no one was talking about. Like, no
yeah.
one's like, I'm like, here you all are, but you have no exit strategy.
Hmm.
Like, what do you think you're gonna do? You know
For
what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah.
And again, it's just people not having, uh, being in an industry that, like, I'm not saying that to shoot my own horn, but if you don't
Yeah.
understand like metabolic damage and all the things, like, and you're just blindly trusting someone, I know you're excited that something's finally working, but it's not really the healthy way to go about it either, which is
Hmm.
why the GOPs have all this stigma around them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for me, like, even for myself, I was like, let me look at this differently. Like, how can I do this,
Hmm.
get the tool, but I don't want to, I know, even after that first week of feeling like complete garbage on TERS, I don't even have enough energy. I'm not eating enough food. I knew, I was like, this is going to be, there's no exit to this.
Yeah.
I cannot, this is not pretty. And I'm going to lose, your metabolic rate starts to decline as you age, as it is. Absolutely no.
Yeah, you have
Um,
to be able to read your biofeedback for sure. If you're not somebody that's going to pay attention to your energy levels, or really know how to make those adjustments, or just see how you're feeling on a daily basis, like, it's you have to be able to, especially if you're going to go down the research route or anything, because there's so much at play, like, in your body, that if you don't pay attention, you're going to lose muscle, or you're going to put yourself in a worse spot. And I think, like I said, the structure and lifestyle is the most important factor for sure.
Without reaching for another peptide.
For
Oh, maybe I'll just add some NAD because I'm fatigued. How about we look at why you're fatigued?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong, those things are great to help you kind of like transition into stuff, but I like you do not want to set people up to, like, here's, you know, don't just consider taking a bunch of peptides to mitigate side effects that are your responsibility for having a foundation,
For
like, get in
sure.
the gym, get in the kitchen, be smart, meal prep. You're cooking one meal, make five. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like just increase, like it's not hard, it's not complicated, so that you're not reaching for a protein bar because you have a chicken already made. You know what I'm saying? Like pick your
exactly.
just make it's just about making different choices. But I think, like I said, giving people the whole roadmap and understanding these are the choices you are going to have to learn to start making, and you're not going to go back to those other ones.
Yeah,
you know just reassuring them that that does not need to be a fear anymore. Hunger doesn't need to be a fear. Cravings are not going to be there anymore. You're going to have to grieve that. You're going to have to grieve those foods that you used to lean into at 8 o'clock at night in the kitchen, the cookies.
yeah.
You're not going to want them, and it's
No,
going to be weird.
no, I completely agree. Just giving everybody that foundation. Even some people aren't gonna look at the entire thing, but I think in general, like everybody needs to be doing a better job. Like just layering that into any of the content that goes out with like GLPs and stuff. Because if you don't, some the people that are really motivated to do it right, they'll find it. Like I said in the
Right.
past, but there's some people that just want to be like handed all that stuff. So there's a big difference overall. Um, this overall was amazing. I think thank you so much for coming on and opening up for sure. I'll give you a chance to link all your social stuff, but I'm gonna put your school community on the post and everything so I can like link people directly there because there's a bunch of experience like you know what I mean like I always tell people like I try to do as much research online and stuff as I can, but I'm only like 22 myself, so I've been through so
And
much
we all have and we all have different people that are going to gravitate to us for
yeah.
different reasons. Life experience. Like your audience, like I'm not going to have a 22-year-old, guy be like, "Hey, help me out." You know what I mean? Like, and that's
Exactly.
fine. At the end of the day, it's a collaborative. Like I don't look at anything as competition.
For
As
sure.
long as everyone has a moral compass and an ethical compass and I align with their content, absolutely. Just please educate people
Yeah.
so that we're getting this information out and having people have sovereignty over their health. Like that at the end of the day. I'm not here to sell
Yeah.
everybody everything, which is why I got off of TikTok because it's a very like sales, quick information. It's not educational.
Yeah.
And they're banning things. So
Yeah.
YouTube is better.
Yeah. No, definitely plug your YouTube, plug your school community so people can find you. I'll link all of it whenever we release this
Yeah,
podcast. So
yeah, cool.
yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, YouTube, I'm a holistic pep coach or something like that. But I'll give you all the things.
Okay.
But YouTube is the basically the place that I just throw up content. In my school is the Upgrade Lab,
Nice.
and it is female only. So not to be whatever, but that's just the lane we're in.
Yeah. No, no, it's good. It's definitely I think people need to niche down into certain things and that's where they're gonna get the most value for sure. So if I
Just
ever
because a lot of women do not feel comfortable. Like
yeah,
it's a very heavily male saturated space in the education side of it
yeah.
is what I found. You go to TikTok, it's a lot of the girls just like with no background, just wanting to sell. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Have no background, but they just want to be affiliate. And I'm like, that's fine, but I'm only with companies that I feel aligned with. And I'm not here to sell you anything. Like this is what I use, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not, and I won't even like speak on peptides I haven't personally done a cycle of. Just not going to do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can
no.
point you in the direction of it, but that's just who I am. If I haven't endured it, whether it's addiction or any peptide or whatever it is, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
No, respect that 100%. No, this was like I said, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your side of it. I think we've had, even though completely different, points in life, we've had like those similar experiences of like those core issues kind of thing. Um, I'd love to do a part two at some point if people have like questions or want like a specific. If we want to dive deeper into like the roadmap of like how
yeah,